So I'm happy that you followed this invitation. Thank you for your big interest. Thank you very much to the Intersolar for giving us these rooms. And I hope we will presentate today a new book that is not only a new book, but it is more a new idea how to overcome the borders what we have in the world with climate protection policies. I see, or we see together, that everywhere in the world, the big conferences, the governmental conferences, they bring no solutions. We need new strategies, we need new ideas, and I believe we need new goals. Not climate warming till 2 degrees. This is accepted mostly in the world, and it seems to be not reachable. But I will not accept 2 degrees, because when we see the disasters on the world coming from 0.8 degrees global warming today, we should not accept it. And I looked to the details, what could we make as humankind to protect our climate, and I found out it is possible to cool down the Earth in some decades, and it would be possible on an economic way, not a burden for the economy. When we find the right solutions, the right strategies, and the right friends who would work together. And one of the most important actors what we should look for is the finance industry, the finance people. This stands in the center, but before I will begin with the presentations, I thank very much that Mark Jacobson is here, professor from Stanford University. He wrote a foreword in my book, and I thank you very much for supporting it and your work to make a plan for the world to come to 100% renewables by 2030. Stands in the center of this strategy for global cooling. And therefore I'm very glad, Mark, that you are with us. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. The strategy that Hans-Josef lays out in terms of trying to solve this problem, I mean, it's a huge problem in terms of global warming and air pollution as well. But what we had done, researchers here and at UC Davis and some other places, is to look, is it feasible to power the entire world with renewable energy? What we looked at was, can we power the entire world with what we call wind, water, and sun, like energy resources, which are wind, concentrated solar power, geothermal, tidal, photovoltaics, wave-powered hydroelectricity for electric power, and then using these electric power options to provide energy for battery electric vehicles and hydrogen fuel cell vehicles for transportation, and also using these electric power options for heating and cooling, and also industrial processes as well. So we actually power the entire world with what we call wind, water, and sun. And in this analysis, we looked at other options too and figured that these other options were not so good. And I'm not going to explain why so much, but just let's mention that nuclear, coal with carbon capture, natural gas, biomass for electricity, corn and cellulosic ethanol, algae, soy biodiesel, compressed natural gas, these are just not as good as these wind, water, and sun options. So after isolating what are the technologies that we think are the best technologies, the question is, can we actually do that? And one of the benefits, if we look at the world power demand today for all purposes, it's about 12.5 terawatts of end-use power. And if we keep with business as usual, that'll go up to 17 terawatts. But if we convert everything to electricity and hydrogen, we actually reduce our power demand to 11.5 terawatts. So there's over a 30% reduction in the actual energy we need just by converting to electricity and hydrogen because of the efficiency of electricity. And I just want to say the last thing is, this is one way to do this is by powering so to provide this 11.5 terawatts that you need, the end-use power of 11.5 terawatts, which is what you need to power the whole world for all purposes, you can do it with about 50% wind power, 40% solar power, and 10% of everything else. And so these are the number of devices you would need. And what Hans-Josef Fell is looking at is the costs. Is this practical to do in terms of costs and policies to actually implement these technologies, which would be about 4 million wind turbines, a lot of solar photovoltaic power plants and concentrated solar power plants. But this is really all you need to power the entire world for all purposes. And it's really, from our view, it's an implementation question rather than a technological question. It's really, can you implement all these technologies in a reasonable time and at a reasonable cost? And I think that's what Hans-Josef and others have been looking at as well. And I think this is, it's not a question of can you do it. It's really, it's really a question of when it will be done and how fast will it be done, because of the pending need in terms of the climate impacts of not doing it and the health impacts of not doing it. And also the stability, price stability, because fossil fuels prices are changing, whereas if you convert to renewable energy sources, the energy is effectively free for theoretically an infinite amount of time, so there's no cost instability anymore. So I don't want to take up any more time, but I just wanted to point out that it is a large problem, but it is a solvable problem. And I think Hans-Josef's book really tries to address this in a nice way.
I want to give a short overview of this book. I can give a good idea how we could cool down the Earth. The most people believe it is impossible, but I believe it is possible. And we looked on a scientific way, how could it function. The first chapter, the introduction, brings climate protection success stories. We have a lot of them, and this could be all the wonderful examples for all the needs what we have. Renewables. Renewables are others than often told not a burden for the economy, but renewables, right organized, is anyone what every government people seeks. They seek to stimulus package to get new employment without public borrowing. The feed-in tariff law brings it. It is without tax money, without public borrowing. We have big success stories in Germany and in other countries with this. It is not a burden for the economy, it is a job miracle. Otherwise, often it is told to be a burden of the economy, but we should look mostly who tells about a burden. Yes, it is a burden for the old companies who make the business with raw materials, oil, natural gas, coal and uranium. Climate protection must cancel this business, and they fear to the business. I can understand it, but I cannot accept it, because the mankind and the planet needs otherwise. We have fast growing, and we can replace fossil and nuclear. You're welcome. Please come in. Thank you. We have also examples in green chemistry. We know our chemistry, mostly the plastic material, is based on oil materials, and after using these plastic materials, CO2 goes to the atmosphere and pollutes the atmosphere. We have also wonderful examples in organic farming. We all know industrial farming with a lot of fertilizer based on mineral oil pollutes the climate. Organic farming is one part of the solution. And we have a lot of examples in poverty reduction. By the way, in Bangladesh, where million people got solar home system to overcome their poverty, and we have new technologies with climate protection technologies. A lot of examples, we should learn from these examples and spread it to the world. One example from Germany, the massive increase, the job miracle is we had 30,000 employment in 1998 in the renewable energy sector. Today, in 2011, we have even 380,000. It grows anymore. And this is what we seek in Southern Europe to overcome the crisis, this Euro crisis, in USA to overcome unemployment and others. Here is one part of the solution. Chapter 3 describes the crisis of the fossil and atomic age. Yes, we have global warming, we have biodiversity losses. Peak oil leads to rising oil prices and the danger to secure our energy. Nuclear and environmental disasters. We have more and more regions in the world where the people cannot live because of radioactivity. In Ukraine, in Belarus, but now also in Japan. And the more we use nuclear power, the more we must fear that this polluting goes on. We see oil wars, poverty, and economic crisis. More than it is discussed on a political level and in the societies, all these crises are combined with energies. Not only with energies. But climate protection strategies will solve these problems. Is a solution not only for climate protection, for all these problematic situations. We see global warming is increasing very fast. We have a lot of disasters last week, and very terrible flood in Russia. Perhaps you have heard about it. And we see that the scientists tell us all these weather disasters will become faster, oftener, and more powerful when we have higher increase of the temperature of the Earth. Now the disasters are at 0.8 degrees Celsius global warming. What will happen in the world when we have 2 degrees Celsius global warming? I cannot agree on the chances. And we have other disasters too. We discuss the Euro crisis. We are overlooking that the Euro crisis, the financial crisis, and the state borrowing crisis is all mostly influenced by oil prices. You see the blue line, it is the trade deficit of the EU 27. Germany is a leader. Germany has no trade deficit, but the EU by the whole has a trade deficit. And the trade deficit follows nearly completely the oil import bill. The black area is a quarterly oil import bill. The red one is natural gas and coal, the green one, and other raw materials in the violet area. That high dependency of Europe of oil imports brings the burden that it crashes whole nation budgets. When we want to overcome such Euro crisis, we will see it is possible. You will not find, this is the only slide you will not find in the book, because this is a study, this is only 4 weeks old. But I included it, it is very new to highlight this point. It is very important to see the combination between the financial crisis and the crisis of oil. Perhaps a link to the oil crisis and to the financial crisis with Lehman Brothers in 2008. We all know Lehman Brothers secured the financing, the householders in USA, and they could not pay the interest normally. And when the heating prices and gasoline prices rises, then billions of householders in USA could not serve the debts. And this was the hidden aspect
behind the Lehman crisis. Oil plays an important role in this game. Chapter 3 highlights a lot of pseudo solutions what are often discussed that they would help climate protection. No, they don't help. By the way, carbon capture and storage, CCS. It is much too expensive to produce electricity with carbon capture storage from a coal power station. They cannot compete with renewable energies, and therefore it is a no solution. And we have a lot of obstacles, a lot of people oppose CCS strategies in Germany, and they force the government in Germany to cancel this law. Yeah. Nuclear fission, nuclear fusion is no solution. It brings us radioactivity polluting and no help for this. Oh, hi, Jeff. Thank you. It's great that you have time. So, you're welcome. You can come afterwards.
Yes, of course.
Mark Jacobson already has did it. So, we see also intensive and industrial agriculture. It leads to a lot of climate gases emissions from the agricultural landscapes with nitrous and others. It is combined with new climate gases emissions with the oil system, with the fertilizers and with the pesticides. And genetic modified plants cannot help to solve it. We must go to an organic farming and others. Even transport systems are often told when we go to machines with a higher efficient combustion engines with oil, is often told it would help to protect the climate. No, it will not help, because a specific reduced oil consumption leads to more traffic, and this will overcompensate the reduction of the CO2 emissions. We must go to a zero-emission traffic system. This is only the solution. Geoengineering is often told, geoengineering, you know, to make management with solar radiations to reflect it into the atmosphere and back to the other areas. It is not a solution. But one part of geoengineering plays a very important role. It means to take carbon from the atmosphere to bring it to the upper soils. This leads now to the chapter 4. How is cooling of the earth possible? We need two pillars. First pillar, we must go to zero emission technologies. It is possible. 100% renewable energies is possible to save and to give the energy demand to the world. We must go to green chemistry, and chemistry based on the basic on plants instead of mineral oil and natural gas. Energy conservation plays a very important role to fasten this strategy, and even in the building sector, steel concrete, we must replace to other materials, and it is possible. I highlighted it in the book. And we have a lot of wonderful possibilities. Second pillar is, when now the atmosphere is already overloaded with carbon, we must take out it. Zero emission is not enough because it stabilizes the high concentration. Therefore, we have to take out carbon from the atmosphere. It is possible when we go more to grassland than to industry farming, reforestation, organic farming, and new technologies with biochar and vegetable oil fuel on a sustainable way, not on an unsustainable way. It is possible. There are a lot of examples. And this zero emission world in energy system, Mark Jacobson highlighted already, this study plays a very important role. It shows that we can switch the whole energy world by 2030. It is possible on a technology view, on an industry view, and on an economic view. Yes, we have the need of a huge amount of investment. 100,000 billion US dollar would be the sum to replace the world's energy with 100% renewables by 2030. It seems to be a lot, but the Energy Watch Group, a scientific board in Germany, looked to the whole energy bill of the world when we do not go to renewables. And the energy bill in 20 years would be 200,000 billion US dollar on the price rise of only 20% on the basic of 2008. I believe this is too low. But when it is so low, it is double so high. So to switch to renewables is cheaper than to go on with the conventional energies. And it will become cheaper and cheaper in the next years. This is a study from Duke University in North Carolina. 2010 was already the turning point. From this point, the electricity production coming from a new photovoltaic system is cheaper than from a new nuclear power station. Today, it is already competitive when we look to the details. Technology revolution with biochar will come into the world. We have the first companies, 2 or 3 in Germany, who produce this technology. It's a very old thinking how to manage it. It is the same process what the nature makes to take plants and trees and make coal from it in millions of years. This technology makes it in some hours. It's the same process. Input is plants, every plant, mostly waste plants. And the outcome is biochar. We can use it as a fuel or as chemical base for green chemistry, or the best solution is CO2 binding in the soil. This makes the soil more fertilized, that we need no mineral oil-based fertilizers. And when we take this technology, 20-ton biochar into 1 hectare, this will stimulate an initial growth of plants of this hectare of about 100 ton carbon on this hectare. And when we take 10% of the landscape of the planet, we could take out in 30 years about 200 gigaton CO2, and this leads, when we make no emissions, to 330 parts per million. You know, we have at the moment 390 parts per million overloaded atmosphere with carbon. We would need only 8 million hydrothermal carbonization machines worldwide with a cost of 1,000 billion US dollar. Not a lot. It is very easy to come to such a strategy. And we can achieve other points. We have enough landscapes. We can come back to greening the deserts. This is a project in Egypt desert with Jatropha plants. The people there get food and oil for their generators from these plants. From the plants where 1 year earlier were only deserts. This is after 1 year the growing of the plants in Egypt deserts. These are the possibility to overcome poverty and to go to strategies. You will find some other examples in the book with such new development. Chapter 5 describes the policies, what we would need to come to global cooling. Laws for feed-in tariffs are very important. But this is not everything. We need tax reliefs for renewables instead of tax reliefs for fossils. Most subsidizing in the world goes to fossil energies and not to renewables. We could have a carbon tax. All cancelling the subsidizing for the intensive agriculture, fossil and nuclear energy and chemistry. This would save the public budgets. They are overborrowed. We should go this way. And then the climate protection technologies are competitive. We need a research and an education offensive for renewables and organic farming and other technologies. We must reduce all the obstacles for approvals. I know how very difficult it is to get a license here in California for a new wind farm or a photovoltaic system. We must look to the approval systems, and we should look to the discussion of the ideas. Emission trading is not a good idea. It doesn't help the world to come to climate protection. I will find the arguments in the book. Also not quota and certificate system or net metering or others what is introduced often. The politicians who introduce such systems like emissions trading and others often want to protect the business of the big companies. This is a hidden agenda behind these ideas. Look to the example of Great Britain and Germany, what feed-in tariff brings. You know, Great Britain is much more windier than Germany. But Great Britain has only 15% of the installed wind capacities in Germany. And the producing of wind in Great Britain costs 30 cents per kilowatt hour, in Germany 7 cents. This is because Great Britain makes a quota and a tendering system, and Germany has a feed-in tariff system. It leads to a cheap and in renewable energy investment and to a high increasing of the investing. That's a difference of political frameworks. How to come to such a new strategy that we could influence a lot of politicians to make the right political frameworks? That's the most important question. The key role will play the financial sector. Must become a political actor beside of his work as a financer. Our strategy in the world should go not to earn a lot of money and the highest profits in climate polluting, but in climate protecting. We must switch the frameworks politically that the private money will flow to climate protection. Make money with climate protection and not climate pollution. This means switch the energy systems, promote political strategies. And I think the vehicle to come to this idea is a new initiative. We should bring together all the finance people who are thinking already in climate protection strategies. We have a lot on the world. One is also the forward writer of my book. Here you will find him, Mr. Kajo Koch-Weser, former president of German Bank or of World Bank, in the chief, and now advisor for Ban Ki-moon in political aspects of climate protection. He wrote a foreword for this book. I backed him because I wanted one from the finance sector to support it. And he did it, and a lot of people do it. We should create such a finance initiative, Global Cooling, when they organize what political frameworks would be the right frameworks that the private money will flow into climate protection strategy. And when they come with this agenda to Chancellor Merkel, to President Obama, to Wen Jiabao, then they will do it. The influence of the finance people is great. When Greenpeace goes to Obama, they cannot reach any meeting with him. This is a difference. Therefore, I beg the finance people to join this strategy, and I'm hopeful that it will come. I have a lot of people who are interested in it. This is the short but important chapter 5. So I thank you very much for the attention. Global Cooling Climate Protection Net is a home page for this book. Yeah, thank you for your attention.